everyone for staying with us right here on the program. Our attention is on the security, and some of the pictures are emerging from the engagement that was supposed to happen today on the floor of the Red Chambers, where the senators are supposed to be engaging service chiefs and asking questions on the insecurity that we've seen in the land and how we've gotten here, what really happened, what are the explanations, what Nigerians are going through, and perhaps if there are solutions to some of these problems. You can see some of the service chiefs, the chief of army staff right there in front, and some other very senior officials within the security architecture in the land. But that was adjourned. Let me allow you to listen to the resolution for the adjournment of that engagement.
The Senate has directed accordingly that you further invite the National Security Advisor, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of State Defense, the Minister of Police Affairs, the Minister of State Police Affairs, the Chief of Defense Staff, National Security Advisor, and of course the DGNIA, Minister of Interior, Minister of Finance, and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, in view of the fact that the people we have mentioned are not here, the personnel we have mentioned are not here, and we need their presence to have a holistic and complete discussion on the security situation in the country.
All right, that's the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. Let's get to talk with my guest tonight on the program, who is a lawyer and a violent extremism scholar, a security consultant, Mr. Bulama Bukati, who joins us virtually from London. Thank you so much, Mr. Bukati, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Let's get talking about what could have been an engagement to unveil. I'm imagining that could have been a closed-door conversation and engagement with the service chief. We're seeing it happen over and over again, where the engagement with these top officials are usually an executive session kind of thing, a closed-door session, because of this, the sensitivity of whatever they might be discussing. But today, they said that has been adjourned. How important do you think this kind of engagement is for the Nigerian, for the nation?
I think engagement or invitation or questioning of our security and law enforcement agencies and ministries, if you like, by the National Assembly is very important. The National Assembly is the second arm of government, if you like, the first arm of government mentioned by the Constitution, and it is the arm that has the duty and responsibility, the constitutional duty and responsibility to oversee the executive arm of the government. And we know that the ministries and the service chiefs that they invited are part of the executive arm. It is the National Assembly that approves their budget or passes their budget, and it is the National Assembly that is constitutionally empowered to oversee their activities. And when the National Assembly invites them for these kinds of engagement, the National Assembly is doing that in its capacity as representatives of the Nigerian people. And therefore, when senators are asking them questions, it is the 210 or 220 million Nigerians that are asking them those questions. And therefore, honoring the invitation of the National Assembly is honoring the invitation of the Nigerian people. Answering the questions of the National Assembly is answering the questions of the Nigerian people, and being accountable to the National Assembly is abiding by the Constitution and is being accountable with the Nigerian to the Nigerian people. It's a very important engagement. I just hope, Sheun, that when the time comes for these important persons and officials to attend, we don't see the kind of thing we saw yesterday at the House of Representatives when the CBN governor was invited. I thought he was going to be asked serious questions and be given serious recommendations about the state of the economy. But what I saw was so disappointing. The governor of the central bank read a pre-written script and was allowed to go. That's not how to conduct the probing function of the National Assembly as contemplated by the Constitution. So I hope members of the National Assembly, the Senate, when these ministries and service chiefs attend, would ask them serious questions to elicit comprehensive responses about the strategies, challenges, and their plans for ensuring peace and security in Nigeria.
So you imagine that, or you think that the members of the National Assembly were patronizing, they were not able to hit the nail on the head and speak truth to power, if you may permit that kind of language, if that is what they're supposed to be doing in that sense. Is that what you're saying, that they were just patronizing them?
Yeah, I mean, not in this particular meeting, because we know that the meeting did not go on, and we can get into the reason they gave for not the meeting not going on. But what I saw yesterday was not the proper function of the National Assembly. It was not just patronizing them. I think they were just ticking the box. They just invited the CBN governor in a situation when our entire economy is in crisis, and we thought they were going to ask them serious questions. But Sheuni would have done a better job if the CBN governor gave you 30 minutes than what they did at the National Assembly. That's not how to conduct the function. Conducting the function requires challenging questions. It requires probing questions. It requires putting facts and figures before the central bank governor and pushing him to do what is right for the country. But that was not what we saw yesterday when he attended the House of Representatives. They did not challenge him in any way. It became like a dog nodding exercise. It became like a box ticking exercise, which is not what we expected as Nigerians. And so what I am saying is that national security is a serious business. Insecurity remains one of the biggest challenges to this government and to Nigeria. And therefore, whenever these ministries and service chiefs attend, the National Assembly should have the guts, should have the courtesy, should be bold enough to the Nigerian people to represent us well. And the way to do that is to ask them questions that will elicit comprehensive response and to challenge them in places or areas where they are not living up to expectation.
So for the service chiefs, when eventually they form the kind of quorum that the National Assembly, the Senate wants, what are the kind of questions, for example, if you were opportune to be there in the Senate, what are the kind of questions that Nigerians should be expecting to be heard or to be posed at some of these service chiefs?
Sure. So, of course, we know that the service chiefs were appointed in June last year. And so if I were given the opportunity to ask them questions, like I said, I am going to ask them questions that will elicit comprehensive responses on their strategies, on their challenges, and their plans for ensuring that they tackle or address the insecurity facing us today. And I will just give you like 7 of the questions I would be asking them if I were a member. The first question would be, what tangible or specific new measures have they introduced since their appointment in June last year? Because, I mean, this question is important, Seun, because we should not expect them to repeat what past national service chiefs have done, which did not yield the required result. It was ASEAN, I think, that says it is madness to keep repeating something and expecting a different result. So I would be asking them, what specific new measures have you introduced since your appointment in June last year? Secondly, what are how effective have these measures been, and what are the tangible results that we have seen out of these measures? That will be my second question. Number 3, I would be asking them, what is the current status of coordination between the various security and law enforcement agencies we have in Nigeria? Because as at the moment, we have over 17 security and law enforcement agencies who are placed under different ministries and government parastatals, and each of them is working in silos. And one of the major issues of the Buhari administration was that there was no proper coordination and collaboration between these different security and law enforcement agencies. So my third question will be, what is the current status? And if I were a member of the National Assembly, I will push the service chiefs or the Ministry of Defense to set up an office or an institution that is dedicated to collaboration, because we have seen the service chiefs visiting the president and the president telling them it's important that you collaborate and work together. We know that the Minister of Defense has said this time and again, but what you need is implementation level coordination and collaboration at implementing level officers level. And that requires an office that is dedicated to bringing these different securities and law enforcement agencies together so they can collaborate and coordinate every single day. It is not an occasional thing. So my third question will be around collaboration and coordination. My fourth question would be asking them, what are the specific challenges facing your efforts? We know that they have been doing their best, but their best has not been good enough under the Buhari administration and under the Tinubu administration. I would want the service chiefs to tell me as a member of the National Assembly, what are their challenges, whether financial, whether logistical, whether technological, whatever kind of challenges, what are the challenges? And number 5, how can the National Assembly do better in supporting them? How can the federal government do better in supporting them to ensure that these challenges are tackled or overcome? Now, number 6 would be around community coordination, carrying communities along. I would be asking the service chiefs what specific community, policing or community, military community relations initiatives have they initiated or have they promoted? And how is that going? What are the challenges of those kinds of initiatives, and how can the National Assembly and the federal government help them? Number 7, I would ask them questions around expenditure, because there have been reports of, lack of transparency around security expenditure. And I will be asking them specific questions about the resources being allocated to them. How are they utilizing the resources? Where are the gaps in their utilization of resources, and what are they doing to ensure that resources are used well? And finally, Sean, because of time, I would be asking them questions around reports of of human rights abuses, lack of transparency and accountability at different levels of the security agencies, and ask them what they are doing to ensure that transparency and accountability is fostered and promoted in the security sector.
Fantastic, and I hope that some of these questions you are posed tonight might be questions that some of the members of the National Assembly would be able to take and pose to these service chiefs. But let me ask, what may not be a direct security situation, but it's sociological in one sense, and those experts who will tell you that these have a security implication. There are agitation, and we've seen it happen in Kano, in Niger State, that people are going to the street to agitated and protesting the price of commodities and the spike in the prices of commodities in the market. And there are those who will say this has to be stemmed so that it doesn't escalate. As a security expert, what do you make of this situation, and how do you think the government of the day can handle it? It's a society issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a society issue. And shown there is this vicious cycle between poverty, unemployment, and insecurity. And of course, the questions I highlighted earlier on are mostly around the immediate measures that need to be taken to tackle insecurity or address insecurity in Nigeria. But your question is around the medium and long-term factors that are leading to insecurity or exacerbating insecurity in the country. And one of them is socioeconomics. It is questions around poverty, unemployment, and social inequality. And unfortunately, we know that over the past 6 months or so, poverty has skyrocketed in Nigeria. Food prices or prices generally has gone soar in the country. And what we have seen is an increase in abject poverty, an increase in the number of Nigerians that are unable to afford 3 square meals, or afford healthcare, or afford education and other necessities or basic necessities for life. And there is a direct relationship between these economic or socio-economic factors and insecurity. Because the more young people are unemployed, the more people are desperately poor, the more they will be vulnerable to recruitment into criminality and terrorism. The more we see protests in the country, the more we will be channeling policing efforts towards those kinds of protests, and then that will give the armed group, non-state armed groups, terrorists and criminal gangs the breathing space to plan attacks and implement them. And of course, we know that what Nigerians are crying about right now is not a lie. I speak with people from my local community every day. I engage with Nigerians also on social media, and what we are seeing is unprecedented level of abject poverty in the country. And Shewin, we know that this endemic poverty that has increased in Nigeria, remember that even before the current situation, Nigeria was the headquarters of the world when it comes to poverty. There were over 100 million Nigerians in abject poverty. Now, the current situation has pushed even millions more Nigerians into poverty. And we know, Shewin, that these are not global factors mainly. They are not natural factors. These are as a result of deliberate government policies, the floating of the naira, the removal of fuel subsidy, the increase in electricity and other bills. These are deliberate government efforts that have pushed millions more Nigerians into poverty and made those that were already in poverty even poorer. And the government did not increase salaries. It did not increase opportunities for Nigerians to earn more, but it has tripled or even quadrupled the prices of goods and services. It has tripled or even quadrupled the prices of basic necessities, and no country can survive in the kind of situations Nigerians are right now. The only way for the government to stop these protests from spreading and from becoming bigger is for the government to tell itself the truth, reconsider the policies that have pushed people into endemic poverty, and introduce measures that will cushion the effect of some of the policies that may remain after its consideration.
I mean, let's take a look at the efforts of the service chiefs. It's been how many months now since they've been put together, and you see the situation, because one area that is very crucial that this government is going to be adjudged or graded or measured by the citizens of this country is in the area of security. If they are not safe, the people will talk, people will protest, there will be agitation. Where do you think they may have gotten it wrong, considering the incidents, the violent and criminal activities that we have seen in the past months?
Yeah, I mean, you are right, John. Security of lives and property is the primary duty of government. And of course, it is the basic measure upon which every government would be assessed. If Nigerians feel safe, our economy will get better. If we are safe, our social life would get better. If we are safe, everything in the country will be easier to run and to live. But where people are begging to live, just to live, I mean, that's a situation that is, that's a no-brainer. Everyone knows that security of lives and property is what this government will be measured on. Of course, also because, remember, Sean, that before this government came, all these security challenges have been there. And that's why in the current president's election manifesto, his first priority was national security. And he made dozens of promises in that manifesto about how to get Nigeria security, how to secure Nigeria. And therefore, not just by the provision of the Constitution, not just also by the provision of the social contract, but also by the president's own manifesto, the first measure upon which this President Tinubu will be assessed is security. And of course, over the past few weeks, we have seen a dousing of some of the security challenges in some parts of Nigeria, but we have seen unprecedented security incidents in other places, like in Ekiti State, where 2 traditional rulers were killed, and another traditional ruler was killed in Kwara State, We also saw school children and teachers being abducted in Ekiti State. They were released after 6 days. We don't know the details of their release. But we have seen an ebbing of some of the incidents in places like Abuja, even though we have recorded some incidents even in Abuja. And we have seen some steps being taken since the outrage that was caused by the last spate of attacks in Abuja. Now, where are the service chiefs getting it wrong? It is not necessarily perhaps getting it wrong. It's a question of them trying, working to improve their the activity or their efforts on the ground. And shown one of the areas may not necessarily be under the service chiefs, but like I told you in our last interview, that's the most important area, which is the question around border security. Showing none of the arms or drugs these terrorist groups and criminal gangs are using are manufactured in Nigeria. Or I would say the overwhelming majority of them are not manufactured in Nigeria. They flow into Nigeria through our borders. And when we talk about insecurity, we often neglect our customs and migration, which are the most important. And therefore, if you ensure border security in Nigeria, you have solved almost 70% of the problem. As we speak, Shaun, there are terrorists and criminals who are so addicted to drugs that they cannot lift their feet if you withdraw drugs from them. And therefore, if you stop the supply of drugs to them, then you have reduced their capacity to operate. Wow. Yeah. Also, if you cut their arms supply, then it will be very difficult for them to operate. But how many times do we talk about customs and migration when we talk about insecurity in Nigeria?
Wow. These are very deep stuff, and I hope that very instructive, and thinking that the federal government and everyone that is involved will take action. Thank you so much, my friend. Bulama Bukati, a lawyer and violent extremism scholar. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Shaun.
I appreciate it. That's our show for tonight. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching.